Okay, so we're left with the ramrod for the basic assembly. This is one thing that kind of trips up people sometimes with assembling of kits, is they'll ordinarily maybe open up the box and they'll think, well, they're going to put the ramrod in because that's something they can do very easily. But they'll be like, oh, it doesn't want to fit. You know, sometimes it'll fit through the ramrod pipes. When you start to put it in the stock, it'll be too tight, and they're like, what have you done to me? That's just how it is. Okay, ramrods are not, dowel rods are not perfectly sized. They sometimes have to be sanded down a little bit. Usually they'll slip through the pipes. This one must be a little bit on the bigger side because it doesn't want to easily go through the pipe. They'll most often not go through the stock, into the stock, because the area the ramrod that enters the stock is traditionally tapered a little bit, made a little smaller, such that it'll go in the stock easier. So no need to panic if the ramrod doesn't fit. Don't even think about trying to drill out the hole in the stock. If I try to do that, it's a terrible idea. So just follow my steps here and you'll be okay. Now in the future, maybe we'll figure out some way to size these ahead of time. I don't know. It's a little bit tricky, but we'll see. The first step we'll do is we'll install the tip. The tip goes in the stock on this end. The tip doesn't stick out here. The tip goes in the stock. So there's a little tenon on the end of the ramrod. The tip should fit over there. It's designed to be a snug fit. This one's a little snugger than I would want. It'll probably tap on there, but just to make it a little easier, I'm just going to take a file. Whoops. I didn't need to do this. It'd probably tap on there, but we'll go like that. Okay, now we'll tap it on there. I like it to be a pretty snug fit on there. So the tip is smaller diameter than the rod, so that allows you to decrease the rod diameter slightly, especially where it enters the stock. Everything lines up and it'll be good. So we need to retain this tip on the rod somehow. Finish nail so it'll get cross pinned. So the first thing we need to do is drill a hole. I think it takes maybe around a 70 thousandths drill for the finished nail to slip through there. You can also use just a 16th inch drill if you have one, and then file the pin down a little bit. I can demonstrate that. So what we're going to do is we're going to drill a little hole right here. See if the pin will fit. Sometimes when they smash the tips on these nails, they flare out a little bit, so when they cut the pointy tip, so you can make sure that's down. That seems a little tight. Okay, so let's just say, well, it doesn't fit quite right. So here's the easiest solution to fix that. Cut off the head, or side cutters. If we'd use a little bigger drill bit, it'd be fine, but since we didn't, cut off the head, take your drill bit out, chuck up your pin in the drill, spin it, file it down a little bit. Take it out, see if it'll go in the hole. Okay. A little tight, but I think it'll tap in there. I think it'll drive in there. It's a little bit on the tight side, but I think it'll be okay. So, before I tap it in, I'm going to take another drill bit and just chamfer this hole a little bit. In the future, we may have these tips with the holes already in them. So see, I just broke the corner, just spinning that in my fingers. Now we're going to insert this in there. Hopefully it'll go. trim this and use side cutters and trim it. Both ends. Take the file again and get it a little closer. You just want it barely sticking up from the surface. Same over here. You can put this in the vise, it'll probably be a little easier for you. Okay, so that's pretty good. So you can see it just barely sticks up from the surface. Tiny little bit. Take a ball peen hammer, has a little rounded end, or even a regular hammer. You probably don't even need to use a ball peen. Use a ball peen, just snipe it down like this. A regular hammer works fine too. Snipe that in there, roll it over, snipe it in there. That flares out that pin so it's stuck and retained. So it can't fall out. And the pin is, the ramrod tip now is fixed on there. So what we'll do is we'll get this out of our way here. Now we need to file these pin heads down, flush with the okay. So you can see it's all down flush. We'll do this other side. Okay, so the tip is now installed. Now what's left is we need to size this rod so it goes in the through the ramrod pipes and into the stock. So there's different ways to accomplish that. We'll probably just work through several ways. Maybe the first thing we'll do is we'll just file this down a little bit, this wood, so it just meets this tip. Seems like it's pretty good. You can feel it, just feel if there's any steps there. And a little step right there. Okay. That's pretty flush. We're going to sand it down too. So this end will probably start through the pipes now, which it does. But we're going to taper this area and then just sand this area down a little bit. So let's try one method here. Let's just use a block of wood and a piece of sandpaper. That's one method that can work. This is like 150 grit sandpaper. So it was probably a little coarser and be a little better. It's a pretty safe method. So that's not cutting real fast. Let me put on a little coarser piece of paper, see if that helps. Okay, let's see if that'll start to fit in stock. Probably go a little further this time. It's going pretty good. It's still getting tight up here, so the whole rod is slightly oversized. Not a lot, just a little bit. So we'll go ahead and sand the rod too here. So you can use a piece of sandpaper like this. There's some other tricks too, I'll show you. You take the vise out of the stock out of the vise. You can take a piece of sandpaper and you can clamp it in the vise if you want. Sort of around the too tight it won't slide, something like that. This gun. That's a pretty good way of doing it too. This is 150, I think it's 150 grit tape. It's probably a little finer than I would use for this ordinarily, but it's cutting okay. Okay, let's see if that'll start to fit any better. It actually went all the way in. That's all the way down. It's still a little tighter than I would prefer, because once it's stained, you get oil on it or the humidity changes, it's gonna be too tight. So we can just keep on going like this until we get it how we want. Or another method I'll show you is to use a scraper. Piece of steel that has a hooked edge. Look up card scraper and you'll go to see a lot of talk about it. Then you can scrape it down. It's a nice way of doing it too. Find a sharp edge on it. That's a little better there. This leaves kind of a nice texture too. Looks a little bit more realistic and traditional. That's not a nice thing about a scrape finish. Adds to the interest. Turn it here. If it doesn't scrape great in one direction, well, turn it, just go the other direction. Okay, I think we'll just sand it just a touch, just to knock off any high spots from the scraper. Let's see if it'll go in. It's very nice. It's all the way bottomed out in the hole. We're going to mark it. Mark with a little file here, I guess. And we're going to cut it off. So you can cut it off with a lot of different tools. You can cut it off with a little hacksaw, it'd work fine, or a little fine back saw, a little jeweler's saw, anything with fine teeth. Some kind of little hobbyist saw would work too. Try to cut it reasonably square. There's a little fine back saw that I'll use to cut it off. Now we'll put a little bevel on the ends. And finally, I like to cut a little hollow in the end of this, so when you're using it to load, it'll kind of set on top of the ball a little better. I'll show you how I do that, see if this will work or not. So this cutter, it's a little gouge. It's actually kind of shallow. Let me get a different one here. Hopefully it's sharp enough. This one has a little more curve. So I'm just going to use this to hollow that out a little bit. And again, you could put this in the vise and probably be more advisable.
I'd probably cut myself.
Yeah, something to be a little bit careful with, I guess, if you're not used to this sort of work. Okay, I think that looks okay. So we've got a little bit of a recess cut in there. So the ball will fit over top of it. Or this will fit over top of the ball well. Get in there if you want and smooth it up just a little bit. So I think that's fine. See it? So now, go in the rifle. So what's left is sanding the stock, polishing up the mounts, polishing up the brass pieces, staining and finishing the stock, finishing the metal parts. And that's about it. Any carving or engraving that somebody might want to do as well. If you have any questions, just let us know. We're happy to help. We'll be following this video up with another one that'll go through more of the process of completing this rifle. So thank you.